You open your eyes in the morning, and the first thing you feel isn't rested. It is a heavy, dull pressure behind your eyes. You aren't physically exhausted from running a marathon, yet you feel completely drained before your feet even hit the floor. We have a modern medical term for this. We call it burnout. But Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japanese history, had a different name for it. He called it a misalignment of the spirit. It is a terrifying contradiction to be physically sedentary but spiritually exhausted. You sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, yet you feel like you have been fighting a war. And in a way, you have. Musashi fought over 60 duels, many of them to the death. He spent his days training in freezing waterfalls, carving Buddha statues, and writing philosophy in caves. By all logic, he should have been destroyed by fatigue, but he wasn't. He argued that your exhaustion does not come from the work you do. It comes from the resistance you hold against that work. Think about the last time you were truly engrossed in a hobby or a passion project. You likely worked for hours, missed meals, and lost sleep, yet you felt energized. That is flow. That is alignment. Now think about a 20-minute meeting where you had to pretend to agree with someone you dislike. You probably walked out needing a nap. Musashi discovered that fatigue is not a lack of fuel, it is a leak in the tank. And most of us are walking around with 1,000 tiny holes in our spirit, draining energy faster than we can sleep it back. But here's the part most people miss when they try to fix their sleep schedule. They assume the solution to tiredness is rest. They book vacations, they sleep in on weekends, and they binge watch shows to decompress. But Musashi would say that if your spirit is misaligned, rest will not restore you. You cannot recover from a lack of purpose by lying in bed. This is why you can spend an entire Sunday on the couch and still wake up Monday morning feeling heavy. To stop feeling tired, we have to look at where the energy is actually going. And for Musashi, the first major leak was the weight of other people's eyes. When he was just 13 years old, Musashi fought his first duel against a samurai named Arima Kihei. It was a brutal, violent encounter, and Musashi won. For a 13-year-old boy, this should have been the moment of ultimate glory. You can imagine the impulse to run through the village, shouting about the victory, seeking praise from the elders, looking for validation that he was strong. But he didn't. He went home alone. He realized something that took most people a lifetime to understand. The moment you fight for the applause of the crowd, you have given your strength away to them. This sounds like a philosophical stance until you look at the biological cost of validation seeking. Every time you check your phone to see if people liked your photo, every time you rephrase an email 5 times because you
are afraid of sounding stupid, every time you buy something to impress people you don't even know, you are burning high-octane mental energy. You are running a constant background simulation in your brain trying to predict how others perceive you. Musashi called this the disease of the mind. It creates a hesitation in your spirit. And in a sword fight, hesitation means death. In modern life, hesitation just means chronic fatigue. You are tired because you are performing a character instead of living a life. If you stripped away the need to impress anyone, if you didn't care about the status of your job, the brand of your car, or the likes on your post, how much lighter would you feel right now? Musashi didn't fight to look like a samurai. He fought to survive. His lack of performance gave him an endless reservoir of focus. But there is a second, more insidious weight we carry, one that Musashi was fanatical about removing. He wrote a simple instruction: do nothing which is of no use. This sounds obvious, but apply it to your last 24 hours. How many things did you do that were of no use? We tend to fill every empty second with noise. We listen to podcasts while we do dishes. We scroll headlines while we wait for the elevator. We text while we walk. We are terrified of silence. Musashi lived like a ghost. He traveled with almost no possessions. He sometimes didn't even carry a change of clothes. He slept on the floor. Now, I am not suggesting you sell your house and sleep on the hardwood. That is not the lesson here. The lesson is about cognitive drag. Every object you own, every subscription you have, every unfinished project sitting in your garage, and every unread email is a mental weight. It is a small stone in your backpack. One stone is fine, but we are carrying thousands. We are drowning in information, yet we are starving for wisdom. And the act of processing all this useless noise is metabolically expensive.
Musashi removed everything that did not help him survive or create art. He understood that clarity is an energy source. When you look at a room that is cluttered, your brain spikes in cortisol. When you look at a schedule that is packed with maybe obligations, your spirit sinks. You feel tired because you are carrying a life that is too heavy for your soul. The fix isn't to get stronger legs to carry the heavy backpack. The fix is to open the bag and dump out the rocks. But removing the clutter is only the preparation. The real source of Musashi's stamina came from how he approached the work itself. And this is where modern advice usually leads us into a trap. We are told we need motivation. We watch videos to get pumped up. We wait for inspiration to strike before we write the book or go to the gym. We treat energy like it's a mood. Musashi would tell you that reliance on motivation is a weakness. If he had waited to feel ready or excited to fight a duel to the death, he would have died in his second match. Instead
of motivation, he cultivated rhythm. There are records of him practicing a single sword strike thousands of times in a row, day after day, regardless of the weather, regardless of his mood. He wasn't doing this to get swole. He was doing it to remove the friction of decision. When you have to debate with yourself whether or not to go to the gym, you are using willpower. Willpower is a battery, and it drains very quickly. But when you build a rhythm, when the action becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth, you bypass the energy cost of decision-making. Musashi didn't try to train. He simply was a warrior. So training was just what happened when the sun came up. It required no more mental energy than breathing. This concept of rhythm over motivation is critical because motivation is high intensity but short-lived. It burns hot and fast, leaving you exhausted. Rhythm is low intensity and sustainable. It is the slow, steady beat of a drum that keeps you walking for miles without realizing how far you have gone. You are tired because you are constantly negotiating with yourself. You are arguing with your alarm clock. You are debating your diet. You are weighing the pros and cons of doing your work. Stop the negotiation. Musashi's energy came from the fact that the decision was already made years ago. He was a swordsman. He trained. That was it. But even with rhythm and even with simplicity, there is one final, massive energy drain that destroys the best of us. It is the obsession with the result. We live in a world that is obsessed with the outcome. We want the promotion, the number in the bank account, the completed project. We focus entirely on the finish line. And this is where the risk quietly increases to a dangerous level. When you focus on the result, you introduce anxiety. You start fearing that you won't get it. You start rushing. You start forcing things. This anxiety acts like a brake pad rubbing against the wheel of your life. You are pressing the gas, but the anxiety is pressing the brake, and the result is heat, friction, and burnout. Musashi faced his greatest rival, Sasaki Kojiro, in a duel that became legend. Kojiro was the picture of perfection, clean robes, a high-quality longsword, and a reputation for elegance. He was focused on the status of the duel. Musashi arrived late. He looked unwashed. He didn't even use a real sword. He had carved a wooden bakken from an oar on the boat ride over. He looked like a madman, but he wasn't mad. He was completely detached from the ceremony of the result. This wasn't just a physical fight. It was a clash of internal states. Kojiro was fighting to win. Musashi was simply fighting. And this distinction is the key to unlocking a level of energy you didn't know you had. The duel ended in a fraction of a second. Kojiro swung his long blade, a masterpiece of steel, slicing through the air with terrifying speed. But Musashi didn't block. He didn't parry. He simply stepped inside the arc of the weapon and brought his wooden oar down on Kojiro's skull. It was over. Musashi didn't cheer. He didn't look around for approval. He bowed to the fallen opponent and walked away. The difference wasn't physical speed. It was mental friction. Kojiro was burdened by the weight of needing to win, of needing to prove his reputation. That need created a microscopic delay between his thought and his action. Musashi, holding a piece of scrap wood, had nothing to lose and nothing to prove. He was entirely in the moment. And this is where the advice sounds right, but can still be dangerous for us today. We are told to be goal-oriented. We are told to visualize the trophy, the promotion, or the finished house. But Musashi would argue that being goal-oriented is exactly what is making you exhausted. When your mind is fixed on the future, on the result, you are not here. You are living in a hypothetical scenario that hasn't happened yet.
This creates a constant, low-level anxiety that hums in the background of your nervous system like a refrigerator you can't unplug. That hum burns energy. It is why you can sit at a desk doing nothing but worrying about a deadline and feel like you've run a marathon. Musashi wrote, "Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love." He wasn't just talking about romance, he was talking about lust for the outcome, the lust for success. If you can learn to detach from the result and simply fall in love with the swing of the sword, or the typing of the sentence, or the movement of the brush, the fatigue vanishes. The work becomes the reward, and the energy loop closes. But there is a deeper layer to Musashi's stamina that goes beyond combat. It's about how he recovered. Most of us assume recovery means doing nothing. We come home, we collapse, and we let our brains rot in front of a screen. We call this turning off. But here's the part most people miss. Consuming information is not rest. Scrolling through social media is not turning off, it is hyperstimulation. It is blasting your dopamine receptors with bright lights and new context every 3 seconds. Musashi didn't have a phone, but he understood the principle of active rest. Between duels, he didn't just sleep. He painted. He carved sculptures. He designed gardens. He studied tea ceremonies. He wrote, "The way of the warrior is the resolute acceptance of death," but he also wrote, "It is difficult to understand the universe if you only study one planet." He believed that the way was in all things. By switching his focus from the sword to the paintbrush, he wasn't stopping his focus, he was rotating it. He was using a different part of his spirit. This is a profound physiological truth. Often, we aren't tired of working, we are tired of using the same neural pathways over and over again. When you feel burned out, your instinct is to stop. But sometimes, the cure isn't to stop, it's to create. If you spend all day looking at spreadsheets, don't
Home and look at a television. Go home and cook. Go home and build something with your hands. Go home and write. The shift from consumer to creator generates energy. It restores the sense of agency that the modern world steals from you. Musashi found stillness in movement. He found peace in the act of creation. And because he never stopped cultivating his spirit, he never ran dry. However, none of this matters if you are leaking energy through the massive hole of regret. In his final days, Musashi retreated to a cave called Rigondo. He was old, he was dying, and he was alone. In this cave, he wrote his final work, the Dokudo, or The Way of Walking Alone. It consists of 21 laws for life. One of the most striking laws is simply, do not regret what you have done. This assumption sounds logical, that we should regret our mistakes to learn from them, until you look closer at what regret actually does to the human body. Regret is the act of carrying the past. It is a refusal to accept reality as it is. When you regret, you are spending your limited energy trying to mentally rewrite history. It is a futile, exhausting battle against time itself. Musashi had killed dozens of men. He had made enemies. He had lived a hard, violent life. If anyone had a reason to lie awake at night haunted by the past, it was him. But he understood that guilt and regret are heavy stones. You cannot walk the path if you are dragging a corpse behind you. He chose radical acceptance. He accepted his actions, he accepted his flaws, and he accepted his death. This is where the risk of burnout quietly increases for us. We spend so much energy replaying that awkward conversation from 3 years ago, or worrying about a mistake we made last week. We are time travelers, constantly jumping to the past to regret or the future to worry, leaving our bodies completely empty in the present. Musashi's energy came from being 100% here. When he ate, he ate. When he walked, he walked. When he fought, he fought. He didn't waste a single calorie on what if. If you look at the trajectory of your own life, you might see that your tiredness is not a medical condition, it is a spiritual accumulation. You are tired because you are pretending to be someone you aren't to please people who don't care. You are tired because you are drowning in clutter and noise that adds no value to your survival.
You are tired because you are obsessed with the destination and hating the journey. And you are tired because you are carrying a backpack full of regrets. The data doesn't fail, our interpretation does. We think we need a vacation. Musashi teaches us we need a philosophy. The path to boundless energy isn't about buying a better mattress or drinking more coffee. It is about alignment. It is about cutting away the non-essential with the precision of a master swordsman. Imagine for a moment that you dropped the need for validation. Imagine you stopped explaining yourself. Imagine you
forgave yourself for every mistake you've made up until this second. Feel the weight lift off your chest. That lightness, that is the energy you have been looking for. It has been there all along, buried under the debris of a chaotic life. Musashi died kneeling, with his sword in one hand and his brush in the other. He didn't fade away, he finished. He left us a map out of the exhaustion. But the map requires courage. The courage to be disliked, the courage to be simple, and the courage to walk alone. You have the capacity for that same focus. You have the capacity for that same rhythm. The question is not whether you have the energy. The question is, are you brave enough to cut the rope that is holding you back? The sword is in your hand. The rest is up to you.